Hello and welcome to ThePapare.com. You're on another edition of The Breakdown, and what a topsy-turvy weekend it's been. Last week was all about one scores. This weekend it was a weekend of blowouts. Let's have a look at the scores and what happened on the field in the last weekend. Our results from last week: Siaran FC storming back into form, 53 points to 33 win over Army. We have Kandy SC who also stormed into another win, 63 points to 31 against the high-flying Navy. Police Sports Club against CHNFC, a close game, but still CHNFC winning 38-25. Havelock Sports Club 35-6 against Air Force, but not a performance that Havelocks will be too proud of. Let's have a look at our first game, Siaran FC versus Army. We thought in the weekend before that there might be another upset on the cards. Could Army make it 3 in a row against the big three of Navy, Kandy and now Siaran FC? But Siaran FC back at home after a few issues off the field. They've parted company with their coach. They also dropped who was their best player in the first round for the Havelocks game. He started on the bench, Tharinder Ratpatha, for the second game in a row as well. But what a performance it was. Steven Sivaraj starting in that number 10 position, and what an outstanding game of rugby from Omalka Gunaratne at the back. Probably the best combination in the back three that they have in the back row that they have with Shamal Veerasekara, Omalka Gunaratne and Joel Pereira. And that selection balance showed. It really made a huge difference with the wingers scoring the first 3 tries. We had Riza Rafaidin and Chamod Fernando scoring the first 3 tries. And after Army managed to come back into the game, Sia pulled away again later on in that game. Army didn't probably play to their strengths. They should have tried to speed the game up a bit more, put the ball in behind Siaran FC and try to chase those kicks with guys like Sudaraka Dikkumbara in the line as well. Dikkumbara scored a brilliant try himself. Army scored some outstanding tries, and for anybody who was watching, even a neutral fan, this was an outstanding game of rugby because everything was just fast and open. They were willing to throw it out wide. The defenses did suffer a little bit, and I think both coaches will go back and think, how can we make these defenses a little tighter? But in terms of tries scored, in terms of points scored, in terms of flair, it was really an outstanding game of rugby, and Sia coming away with a big win that they needed because 4th place was on the cards before this match started. But Siaran FC cementing 4th place at least for now. Based on last week's performances, we had a high-flying Navy going up to Kandy as well. Navy lost to Army, but it was a really close win, and they needed to rebound from that. So we thought perhaps Kandy might be at the receiving end of a little bit of a backlash from Navy, but I think what has happened is that Army's win against Kandy up in Nithavala has left them really smarting. And this was the first game back for Kandy after that loss against Army, and I think they really needed to show their supporters that they knew exactly what they were doing up there in Nithavala. So it was an outstanding couple of first phase tries to start the game off with Lavanga Pereira latching onto a nice ball from Roshan Veeraratne, and it was the really interpersonal play of guys like Veeraratne, Lavanga Pereira, Danushka Ranjan and Nigel Ratpatha as well that created havoc in that midfield Navy defense. They weren't able to really dominate in that area, and the forwards too had really improved their performance. Navy's forwards were expected to do a little better, but they found out that they were up against an 8 that had a little bit more quality in it. The performer of the day, Tirina Vijayasinghe, of course, knocked over all 8 conversions that came his way and also scored 4 tries. We haven't seen that in a long time. We haven't seen anybody score 4 tries in a long time, but certainly we haven't seen anyone score 36 points in probably ever in this Dialog Rugby League season. So an outstanding contribution from him. But despite that, the eye-catching tries created by Absal Mohammed. He scored one of them, a nice little chip ahead and a wonderful break as well, and a superb interception for the first try for Buddhima Piyaratne as well. So some superb game-breaking work from Mohammed Absal, but the rest of his team couldn't really match up to the kind of structure that they needed and the defense that they needed in close to try and beat this Kandy team. So a superb win for Kandy, extending their lead at the top of the table already by a 63-point win, their highest score so far this season, and that's something that we weren't expecting to come against Navy. Let's look at the stats from this weekend. The stats, of course, available to you on this Dialog Rugby League from stats.thepapare.com. So join that link for any of the numbers that you may need from this Dialog Rugby League or any of the seasons past as well. Let's look at the leaderboard. Kandy played 11-1-10, just that one loss to Army a couple of weeks ago. They're still on 61 points and 3 points ahead of Havelocks, who did manage to get their bonus point against Air Force as well. So they move up the rankings. 58 points is what Havies have on identical matches played and matches won. We have CHNFC, who continue to stay up there in third place. A remarkable resurgence for them in this second round, and they're on 45 points, well clear of CRNFC, who are way back in 35 points and scrapping it out for fourth place. But they will be mightily relieved that they managed to put a little bit of distance between themselves and their challengers Army, because if Army had won last week, they definitely would be in this fourth spot as we speak today. So Navy dropping a little bit further down the ranks. That will be disappointing for them. They've won just 3 games in this league so far. They've picked up a few bonus points, though, so they're pretty much close to Army on 26 points, Police on 22, and Air Force still not being able to pick up a bonus point in last week's loss, and they are on 10 points. So watch for a few ups and downs between Army, Navy and Police for that 6th, 7th or 5th, 6th and 7th spots. That's going to be a couple of interesting clashes at the bottom, but still not a lot between the first place and last place teams. Our individual stats now for the last weekend, and our individual top point scorers and try scorers. We have Danushka Ranjan on 9 tries, touching down this week in front of the Kandy clubhouse and going into a wonderful celebration. Buanek Udankam were very close behind him on 8 tries. So a little competition brewing between those guys there, the number 8 and the number 13 for Kandy Sports Club. And in top point scorers, we have a surprise leader at this point. We didn't expect someone to come storming through from 3rd place to 1st place, but that's exactly what he did with a 4 try and 8 conversion performance. Silina Vijayasinghe moves up to 134 from the 98 points that he started off this weekend on. Samuel Madhuwantha just behind him on 132 points, and it'll be interesting to see what happens when these two players meet when CH take on Kandy next week. And Tharinder Ratwatha, a strong cameo off the bench for CRNFC in the Army game, and he moves past the 100-point mark as well. 108 points for him. Let's have a look at next week's fixtures. What we have are some very interesting clashes at the top of the table. CRNFC taking on Navy. Navy, even if they win, will probably not be able to overhaul Army, because Army are playing Air Force. They will be expecting to win that game as well. But still, it's all for pride. Navy and CRNFC, a bit of a grudge match. These two teams have had a history. And at Longdon Place, it's going to be interesting to see what Navy can bring to the party, because their forward pack is a lot stronger than CR's as a collective unit. Their line-out is good as well, and it will be interesting to see whether CR have been able to continue the improvement for 3 weeks in a row, especially with the change in management structure, etc. It will be very interesting to see how they come out against this particular opposition at Longdon Place. We have Army taking on Air Force. Army should be able to win that game as long as they don't get cocky. We thought that they might have got a little complacent given their 2 wins in a row and thought they could beat CRNFC easily, but unfortunately for them, their game plan didn't quite go the way Coach Vaipa Gunaratha would have liked it, and they will have to be at their best to beat Air Force and beat them convincingly with a bonus point. The big match, of course, on Saturday is going to be CHNFC taking on Kandy at the Racecourse grounds. Remember that Kandy are not the best travelling team in the world, and this doesn't mean they get beaten, but it means that their performance drops from maybe 100 to about 80, 85. So that's something that CHNFC will be hoping to exploit. And let's see, with the likes of Adam Gowda in that number 12 position, it's a position that Kandy have not been able to fill with a specialist for some time now. So if he can exploit that 10-12 channel, and if Sudham Suryarachi, who's been playing brilliantly well, probably one of the best scrum halves in the Dialog Rugby League so far, if he can get a bit of a march on Roshan Veeraratna, who's getting on a little bit in terms of his career, that's going to be an interesting battle to watch as well. So CHNFC taking on Kandy, that's going to be an interesting clash between 1 and 3. So let's wait and see how that one goes. All fingers crossed for an exciting match. What we don't want is a one-sided affair. Next, we have Havelocks taking on Police. This match was oh so close when it was played at Police Park, and Havelocks almost thought that they lost it because Police had gone into a lead at half-time, and it was a draw the season before, but this time at Havelock Park under lights, it's going to be interesting to see whether Police can replicate that performance. Police's performance has been falling off a little bit. Their defense hasn't been so good, but let's see whether they can pick it up for this Havelock's game and whether they can really throw the cat among the pigeons with either a draw or a win against this Havelock's team, which will almost certainly hand the title over to Kandy, or at least make it really interesting going into the playoffs. So another big match there, Police taking on Havelocks at Havelock Park under lights. We brought you a trivia question last time. We asked you, when was the league last 9 teams? It's an 8-team league now. We asked you, when was the last time it was a 9-team league? And the answer was 2014 and 15. And we asked you who that team was as well. And the team was the Hambantota Sharks. So we've had a couple of teams coming and going, the Hambantota Sharks and the Navalapiti Alliance. But the correct answer was 2014 and 2015 with the Hambantota Sharks. Rajitha Manikge is our winner. Congratulations to Rajitha, and we will contact you on how to collect your replica Dialog Rugby jersey from the Tuskers. Thanks for commenting on YouTube, so make sure you join us on all our social media platforms. Thanks for joining me on The Breakdown here on ThePapare.com.